Yeah.
Sure.
And next we have a parkland dedication.
All right, so we alluded to this project earlier this meeting, but the development is currently called Capstone Collegiate Properties, and CEI is doing engineering on it, and Aaron Rushing is here with CEI if you guys have questions of him. It is some of the Marinoni property located in the southeast corner of Weddington Drive and I-40 in the southwest quadrant. They are proposing 167 multifamily units there. This is kind of a sketch of their site plan. And their land dedication for that amount of units would be 2.34 acres, or the money in lieu is $93,520. We do have several parks in the area and also connecting trails, Bryce Davis, Friendship, Hotz Park, and then there's some natural areas as well, Village of Shiloh, land, and Hamstring Creek Trail and Shiloh Trail. The developer is requesting to dedicate money in lieu, and staff is also recommending money in lieu due to the acreage that's already serving this area, along with the planned improvements to Weddington Drive and the improved connection with those parklands. And additionally, they are providing over 4 acres of green space for their development. It won't be public, it'll be for those residents only, but they are providing that. So we felt like their recreational needs will be met with the combination of those.
On that aspect of it, is that binding to where, I mean, I know they're doing it initially, but can they go back and build on it at a later time? Because my concern is with this volume of people that are going to be living there, there is access. I mean, Lewis is a big park. I mean, Hotz Park is definitely in the area, but it's a pretty small park. Bryce Davis is a little bit bigger park. You know, I know that we have ordinances, if there's parkland available in a mile radius, that's sufficient. But as far as, I mean, we have to kind of keep in mind the size of the park. So, you know, the dedication is, you said 2.3 in that green space. You know, there are several green areas that I was looking at there. The biggest one is 3.2, so that's a nice big green space. But I know that they're kind of in charge of it, but I just want to make sure that there's some way to keep that binding to where, I mean, just there's not a lot of space there.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
well,
outside of this.
It's not binding.
It's not binding.
We can't require them to have that green space and dedicate money in lieu for us. That's sort of double.
Right.
So no, we can't bind them to that.
Yeah, part of that is stormwater.
I have a question on that, and I don't know if it's something that's new, or in the past, they weren't able to, we're not able to count the, or maybe we weren't able to use the retention area, the water retention areas that count towards green space. Has that changed, or am I confused, or
No.
how does that work?
We don't typically, actually, the Parks Board back in, I think it was 2006, I think you were on it at that point, came up with criteria for accepting parkland and detention facilities. We look at those as not necessarily a positive thing for parks, mostly for maintenance reasons. So we haven't historically taken those as parkland.
And it is working out well, I think, to our best interest that we have not at this point. Such a harmony point, I think that is one really good example of that.
But what they're saying is on this, the green space that they're putting on there is actually part of the retention.
Yeah. And they're probably going to take advantage of that somehow.
There'll be some, and this plan's actually been updated a little bit. There are other little pocket areas of green space mixed within the development.
Yeah, I think we have to be realistic. This is unsupervised student housing, and they're probably not going to use a lot of the parks.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just not.
I
mean, they'll be going to university events and stuff. So, I mean, it's not.
I looked up to the developer, and they build like sandals resorts for students.
It is.
So
Really?
Yeah, just kind of
it's pretty amazing.
Kind of
I want to live there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too. What these are little cottages. So it's almost like they took a subdivision and kind of made a mini subdivision to where all these people, they have little front porches and they have sidewalks. So it you know, all the parking's in the back, so they're really neat little communities.
This is a new concept for
It's a new
Fayetteville.
concept, yeah,
All of us
absolutely.
tell me some
Not
of
to
those.
them, they've done, I think, like 29 of these across the
Yeah,
U.S.
but
mainly
new to
college
Fayetteville.
schools. Yeah, it is new, it makes you wanna be a kid and be in school again. And they said too, they said they take more pride in these developments because they feel this sense of ownership, you know, they got their little house. So like one of the stories they told us is one of the guys living there, his shrub died. Well, they're calling up the front saying, hey, can you get out here and replace our shrub? And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool.
Where was that one? It obviously wasn't Arkansas.
I don't remember what it was.
They're trying to figure out how to park the third car in the yard.
Yeah, that's right.
What is our zoning on this property?
Currently zoned, yeah, it's currently zoned ag. It will be submitting it for a PVD, plan zone development. So
So we haven't done it, we haven't been through any
No,
zoning or
no,
anything.
this is the first step, actually, yeah.
Will that PZD be limited to the 167 units?
Actually, that will fluctuate, actually, I think this site plan is a little older one, so it's actually, I think it's gotten a little bit smaller. I think we're down to about 150 units, so.
Well, I guess the question that I'm asking is it gonna be zoned something, say, you know, RMF 24?
No.
Or will the PZD say you can have this many
It
units?
will, yeah,
Okay,
PCD
so they
is
can't-
the zoning.
They won't have the permit to go build those units on this green space. The city would have to.
Once the
That's correct.
PCD is approved, right.
Right, so we won't have to worry about them pulling a permit on that and nobody remembering that it's supposed to be green space.
That's right. The zoning will run with the plan, so the plan, if the plan's approved, zoning's approved, they're all one contiguous.
How tall are they gonna be, 1 story, 2, 3?
A two-story,
Okay.
they're 3, 4, and 5 bedrooms. Is the way, they do this by bedrooms, so each little cottage would have either, you know, 3, 4, or 5 bedrooms in it.
So this goes back that ordinance that they passed that said 35 unrelated people could live in one place.
I
mean, 5.
5, it was 5, yeah, that's right, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And I think this may be the first one that is kinda taking the lead on that.
No,
Is there another one?
yeah, every single ruling unit in the city,
Yeah.
and it's more than has 5 people in it. So, I just,
I have a question for you about, how many parking spaces do you have there? Is that, and kind of what he's talking about here is we've had subdivisions that come into town and they build 2 parking spaces per unit, but they have 5 people in those
Right.
units, and so each one of those people has 2 cars, so it needs about 10 parking spaces.
Yeah, they've got, I guess they've done enough of these, they kinda know pretty much what they need to park. I can't remember exactly the number that we landed on, but they've done enough that they have a pretty good idea, unless we're really different here,
Sometimes more than one person sleeps in a bed.
but. Yeah.
Alan, I'm sorry, you have a comment?
Yeah, I did have a question for the committee itself. And it's in relation to the parkland dedication in lieu of fees. When I saw this agenda item come forward, I immediately sent it out to as many of the neighborhoods and POA presidents as I could. And I've gotten feedback on just this particular portion already, and a lot of the people in and around the area don't feel like the parkland load can carry this amount of new people. And so I would ask that the committee consider not taking money in lieu of fees. And I don't support this project, and I'll be a member of the council that won't support it, because I've gone on record saying I won't support anything that takes advantage of the up to 5 people per house. But besides from that, just on the parkland dedication fees, I would ask that you all do not take money in lieu.
I don't mean to move on. Alan, is that disrespectful? What? Okay.
No, that was just fine.
It's a company that has taken over student housing for the University of Kentucky.
I'm not aware, to be honest with you.
Have they ever, are they in direct relationship with the university with, as far as student housing goes?
I don't know, I really don't. This is, you know, one of our first projects in Fayetteville. I don't know.
I'm tempted to believe that the university, and this is happening kind of an epidemic around the country, universities are going away from the housing business and allowing these third-party companies to come in and do it for them. And I'm tempted to believe this is kind of an effort because this is such a big one, such a big company in the country. I was curious.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know.
I have a question. For our engineer. The 3.2 acres, part of that is your retainage. What's the land area of that?
The land area
Of the retainage.
Yeah, this is a conceptual sketch. Before we haven't started on doing the actual engineering design to size those ponds. We're just conceptually, we're showing, hey, this is your low spot. There's a floodplain floodway over there in the northeast corner. We know we're basically kind of stay way back here, so we'll have ponds in those areas somewhere. We don't know what the size of those ponds are going to be yet. This again was one of our first steps to try to.
I mean, do you have an idea? I mean, is it half the space? Is it, I mean,
I don't. At a 3.2, I don't. It really, as far as building pinch ponds, the deeper we can make them, the smaller we can make them. At this point, we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
A lot of parking lot.
Yeah.
How many people are gonna live here? How many bedrooms are there gonna be?
There'll be almost 800 bedrooms.
Good, great.
And it'll be a mix of 3 to 4 to 5 bedrooms per cottage.
Picking up the rooms.
Let's say 800 bedrooms.
Oh, I think there's almost 800 bedrooms.
So close to 2,000 students.
Or
more.
No. Like 800 students, so it'll be one.
Oh, bedrooms.
You have 800 bedrooms, you're gonna have more
It's
people.
167 units.
Right.
I guess if
You're
you
gonna
take that
have,
times 5.
11, 1200.
Well,
What's the requirement if we don't take money in lieu?
2.7 acres? 2.3 acres.
2.3 acres.
But what we have to remember that if we do the 2.3 acres, that's maintenance.
How much has this changed?
not a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, not a lot. It's just internally, some of the buildings are arranged a little different.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is if it does change a lot, then
Yeah.
we usually bring it back to the policy.
Yeah, and actually, I think the numbers went down a little, generally the same configuration,
Okay.
but the numbers went down. They're just, they've got 2 new buildings in that one.
Connie, is there any future plans as far as any parks in that area? I mean, I know that we're trying to fit everything together the best that we can, and a lot of times we think the money in view of maybe having another park in that area. Is there any plans of that?
Well, yeah, the regional park.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, talking about this 1 mile,
And
2
there's one
mile.
more. We'll keep adding on to Bryce Davis. I think since we've developed our trail system too, that's kind of changed how we look at our park system. Because a lot of people want the trail system, and they're finally able to get to other parks that are outside of their 1 mile radius because of the trail system we do have. So,
Do we have any feel for how the rest of the Marinoni property is gonna be developed? Because I mean, if it's going residential, then what we need to do, we need to find a spot in the middle of it and have everybody kick in so that we have a
yeah,
decent park.
that's why we're saying, since the south part of it is not shown yet, then we know that is raw land, someday might be developed, or, you know, chances are it will be developed, that it's best until we see what our trail system's gonna do, till we look at that, so,
It seems like it'd be in the citizens' best interest to try to get them to bank land at this point in time. So that, 'cause I mean, we're talking, and I know we've talked the conversation about being students and so forth, but
one of the problems that happens with that, we've done that on several old projects, such as Rodney Ryan Park is one. We banked it when they had this huge, we knew that they were going to develop this huge parcel, Well, then it ended up changing, so we banked this one piece of property, so it ended up changing so much that we had to end up moving our parcel. And the same thing happened with,
Did we try to do something around Elk Creek too?
yeah, there was another park that we did that, a couple, you know, we like it so that we can share a park between two developments.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we've done many times, we put land along the borders of it, that another raw piece of property is located. So,
Do we have to approve this now? I mean, approve, I say, let me rephrase it, do we have to decision this at this?
well, we don't want to hang them up. We're their first stop in the development. But, I mean, we could take some time, go out there and walk the property if you all would like.
It's all fields, isn't it?
But we need to, yeah, it's
Fields,
just an open,
pasture.
yeah, it's a pasture. But we don't want to hang them up. You know, if we do, they probably don't want us to wait till April to decide. So we'd have to have a special parks board meeting in which we would have to have a quorum in order to keep it moving.
Could you tell me about another park that's 2.3 acres? You know one?
It's probably right. It's fine.
I think it's Wilson Park.
Less than an acre.
It's 19?
Hawk Park is less than an acre.
Oh, you know,
It's, yeah, it's much smaller, it's like.
So they can have
That's 9, right, isn't it?
On your eye. You know, the only thing that I could,
Seven.
you know, that you're talking
Couple
Graydon
lots.
Park.
Couple acres.
Right, I mean, the only thing that, you know, that I can foresee, I mean, you correct me if I'm incorrect, is having, them be a little bit more detailed as far as the what green space they're gonna have, because I think once we go through the you know, the coding or whatever, you know, they'll be tied into that and we'll know that the green space is there, you know, so 2.3 acres on this, just this one section here, you know, 3.2 acres total. I mean, you're looking at almost a whole acre of, you know, water storage, so it seems like it probably wouldn't be that much. Like I say, I don't know, but I would just want to make sure that, I mean, is there any way that you could get back to us on that, so that we would
Yeah.
know how much green space is going to be before we vote on it?
We're under now, and again, up in the corner is not the only, we've got other little green spaces
Sure.
scattered throughout the development.
Sure. I mean, would that be unreasonable to try and get that tied down first, as far as so we can see how much green space is actually in that?
Here's, I'll tell you where we're at. Deadline for the PCD is next Wednesday.
Mhm.
Okay, so the developer's trying to hit the August of 15 move-in date. So every week we lose, it's just crowding that August of next year, of 15, August 15. So they really need about 12 months to get this thing built, to do it right. So every week, so let's say if we don't hit the next week, we look 2 more weeks out. So I think that is the second week of April. I believe that's right. So it just really, it crowds their construction schedule and trying to figure out that. I'm just being honest.
Well, I mean, my personal opinion, and I'll get into this one, you know, a lot of these designs that we've had come through are, you know, an architecture's gone through and everything's designed. This kind of looks kind of penciled out. I know you guys are in a hurry, but, you know, something with a little bit more solid design. I mean, because we have an obligation to the community. We don't want to put burdens on other people in that area to make sure. I'm personally satisfied if we can show, you know, 2.3 acres in that green space area that's going to be green space.
So in that green space or scattered out throughout the development?
Yeah, I mean, in that
Either
development
way.
that they'll have access to it. I mean, now, the per capita, isn't there a formula, Connie, as far as how much green space that we require for per capita?
Per
for number of people.
Per
or-
unit, yeah.
Per unit.
Yeah,
per
and that's
unit.
how that 2 point.
Multi-family.
Right, and the 2.3 comes in, so to me, that seems reasonable, but like I say, I'm a little
Well,
bit weary.
on my map, it has, in this map,
Yeah.
There's 3.2 there, and there's 2.7.
2 point, right.
That's a
2.3
pond,
there.
3.2 is a
Yeah.
pond.
There's it's actually 0.62 acres here, and then there's 0.27 here, and actually there's a couple more small ones up here.
That's good too. Is there gonna be a-
could you maybe point at that to them and show them?
Yeah.
That might help them.
So there's 3.2 here, there's 0.62 here, there's 0.27 here, so there's multiple. This would be the only one thing that ponds in it. This is green space, this is green space. There's a little bit of green space around the pool area, and there's a couple more little smaller pocket areas of green space too. So it's not just in the north.
Sure, sure. But like I said, I think the 2.3 acres, you know, if you can show that that's definitely gonna be green space inside of this, that you guys are willing to.
Oh, yeah, there's,
maintain it.
actually, I think it's closer to 3 to 4 acres of green space.
If-
Three
if I
point two
add-
though, did you
if
say
I add
kind of a
those-
pond in it?
Sure, it's a lot, gonna be a lot, it's gonna be
If
retaining
I add those three
water.
on, it would be 4.09.
But I don't know how much.
But, you know, a pond can be considered green space. You know, having a trail around it, or kids could be able to fish in it, I don't know what their intentions are. That, you know, or just a place to go sit and look at. So, I don't know what type of pond, so it can be considered recreational.
So you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask the committee for something. You know, as a council member listening to the advice of these boards, we would rather hear recommendations that you bring to us that are well thought through, because we're not really worried about the developer schedule. We're worried about the long-term viability of our community. Once it's in the PZD process, if it ever gets that far, if it ever gets to be a PZD, then y'all can let us worry about the developer schedule at that point. But I would prefer and really respect the committee taking the time to really look at this and make sure that parkland is what it's supposed to be. You know, and just have a very comprehensive outlook on what the proposal is.
So when it goes through the process, through the PZD process, Parks and Rec still looks at that, again, it's like a large-scale development, right? Don't you do?
No, and that's what I want to clarify with you guys, is that if you make a recommendation, that a certain amount of green space be in this, that's awesome, but it could change between now and when it goes through the PPD process. So we don't normally, unless it changes a lot, we don't typically get a second look at it. So, I mean, we could potentially say, well, if it changes, you know, X percent, we will definitely want to bring it back. But again, that's going to be a meeting for you guys.
And that's kind of why I'd like to have a better number here on exactly how much space is green space before we approve it or disapprove it. I mean, to me, this is just kind of a gray area here. I mean, because I don't think there's going to be retaining ponds in the .27 or the .62 area, but that's, you know, 0.9 acres. I don't know what's going to be in this bigger area, but I just want to make sure that we're fulfilling our obligation to the community for the 2.3 acres of green space for that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
There won't be no question.
And I think looking at this too, another concern I have is that if this project does come to fruition, we know that the rest of that property is gonna be residential of this type. I mean, you're not gonna build $500,000 houses back here in the back around this. So that entire property is gonna be, you know, 4,000 students. So thinking about that, if we're gonna add parkland area into this, it needs to be in consideration with the rest of the property. Because I don't think we want parkland that's in the middle of this one development,
Right.
that it's not gonna be accessible to the other people in the rest of this development.
Yeah, and you know, it kind of happened, another project was Mountain Ranch. I can't tell you how many times we rode that property because we knew we needed a park in it, but it was gonna be in phases, so we were trying to predict stuff, and then market went kind of sour, so.
Is that the end of Stonebridge?
No, the Stonebridge is Rodney Ryan,
Okay.
but this one's over by the Boys and Girls Club Mountain Ranch. So, you know, we had we looked at several different parcels throughout different phases.
It's actually this property here, and we got this trail that goes around that
The
pond.
yeah, we got that. That's right, we got the trail there.
I mean, in the grand scheme of all this property, I mean, what I would, love to envision is individual, companies that are coming in here, having plenty of the required green space in the area, and throwing a park right somewhere in the middle of it for kind of the community to go to as well. I know, we can't look that far ahead to see it, and I don't know what the formula is for, when big parcels like this come in and start to get developed. I mean, like what Phil's talking about, we're pretty much looking at very compact student housing here, that is gonna have requirements in the future. And, it's not a perfect science, I know, Alan made the point of, making sure that we meet our requirements, and I think we definitely need to meet our requirements in this, because, who's to say the closer we get to that intersection of, on Weddington and 540, I mean, is there gonna be more room for more space over there, and then you get closer to highways and major roads and things like that. But, me personally, I feel like until we get some more solid acreage on here that we know is gonna be green space in this community to satisfy the needs of the people in this community, I personally don't feel comfortable voting for it. I don't know if I can make a motion or not make a motion, or I mean, if that's something that y'all would be willing to get a little bit more detail in and present that to us in the plan, then I would be all for it, but.
So would you vote for accepting land versus
No, I mean, what
taking in lieu of?
what I'm saying is the green space that you guys have in that area for the community, I'm fine with you guys doing it however you want to, just so long as the acreage is there to satisfy the needs of that community. Because although there is parks in the other area, I don't think that, I mean, there's a matter of volume of the park, how big the park is versus how many people might be going to that park. And when we start flooding, little parks, then it's not really meeting the needs of the community. I think that you have it set up here to meet the needs of the community. The only thing that I would be concerned about is, making sure that there's at least the 2.3 acres of green space that y'all are going to manage and incorporate into your.
There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And how much would a non-decision today put you back?
2 weeks, at least, maybe 3. Haven't looked at the schedule.
And are you guys getting ready to kind of fill in the details as far as this green space goes?
Absolutely. This was our first step to kind of get the ball rolling, so we're not really ready to just go 100 miles an hour full speed ahead until we kind of got through. We're going to take baby steps to get started. So we'll be doing plans as we go, like the detention pond sizing and whatnot.
Like I said, I don't know if I can make a motion, but I'd make a motion that we table this until we can get the details of the green spaces in that area, and then make a vote on it, but I just don't think so.
I'll second.
You have more discussion?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, even though we meet once a month, we're only putting back 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, we can't submit to the planning department until we have this body's approval. So either we dedicate land, or if they feel one of the two, we need that direction before we can submit to planning.
So if we table this now, we're not coming in,
If you're not coming back for a month, that puts us back probably
3
a month.
weeks.
It'd be April 7th when we meet again.
April 7th.
Yeah.
So then we can't submit until after that. So
Well, let me
Plus 3 weeks.
just bring one thing up, because we are sensitive to our developers as well, they're part of the community, but we didn't have a full agenda for previous meetings leading up to this, so it's not, you understand, it's not us.
Absolutely. I mean, actually, it was our goal to submit full plans back February 12th, and we couldn't make that. So, time is of the essence. I know but we'll just work through the process best we can.
I do want to make one thing clear, and I think you all got it, but our city attorney says that we cannot require them to do beyond what is the requirement. But if their development is putting in something, we can't put in our motion, oh, we're going to take money in lieu because they are providing a they're providing 2.3 acres of park, and they're gonna put a playground in it, or a swimming pool. We can't put beyond the requirement in it, so I just wanted to clarify that for you.
I wanted to ask you, if it was staff recommendation to accept money in lieu, do you want to comment on that, on why you wanted to accept money? Like, go ahead.
Well, the park, we have the other parklands that are close to it, and we are putting a regional park which serves our whole city. I think Mount Kessler, the 367 acres, will serve that whole city. If we can get our trail system to get there for us, then, we're taking care of their needs. A lot of people like the bigger parks. I think that's why Wilson, Gully, and Bryce Davis, and Walker are so popular. Many times there's more amenities in it. That's where you put the tennis courts, the skateboard parks.
And this is Southwest Quadrant.
Yeah.
Could we pass this with a, as long as you fulfill the green space requirement and not, with the retention pond, not
That's what she's saying, we can't put that kind of stipulation. We either take the money in lieu, or we take the land dedication.
I know, I made it
But-
complicated, but
The dilemma is that if we don't take
If we don't
2.34
take it-
acres from this project and 2.34 acres from the next one, and build 19, 20 acres, which I think what would be really nice to get close to saying what Wilson Park is, similar, which I think this area does need that. If we continually take the money in lieu, we limit ourselves to getting those size parks.
Developers will
We're
tend
limiting
to
ourselves
develop
only
only
to the
small
net.
manner for that purpose.
Say that again.
The developers will tend to develop developments like this, of this size, for that purpose. If they don't want to give up the land, they'd rather give up the money, because the land's worth more.
Oh,
Somebody
absolutely.
just told me, but that's because
2.34 acres
conversation.
costs you more than 93,000.
I mean, and this.
And of course, they're doing it by bits and pieces, because money costs money, but, I'm saying, as they do development, that is one reason that they get to the scale, and there's other land that are being developed too.
it's a tough one. This is a tough one.
You can say too, these things help prevent sprawl, because they're more compact, more concise. You can also say, do we really want to maintain 2.4 acres? No, we don't. You have to bring the same equipment to that small site. Yeah, it's tough call.
Well, I don't think it prevents sprawl at all. I mean, it is much better than some other more traditional
I mean,
methods,
yeah.
but
I mean,
you
it's-
could put
it is- it's still-
167 acres on.
But there's not a situation where you're gonna come in and take the money in lieu, and you purchase pockets of property and put a park in the middle of these subdivisions, or do you just try and piecemeal the sections together?
We've done several piecemeals. Red Oak Park is actually 3 different subdivisions that we made it a linear park.
Which one of them?
Red Oak Park, that's over off of Mount Comfort, and
That's not a good example of a good park.
well,
Yeah.
it was at one time when we walked, that's before we really
Yeah.
did
We learned a few
stormwater
things on that.
detention.
Yeah.
Bryce Davis is that way.
Bryce Davis had it on,
Yeah.
we had it on, that's right, almost double.
I just want to make the observation that the only things that I've seen since I've been on this board is student housing. I think student housing in one neighborhood.
I think it's pretty depressing.
And over on the west side. So there's no indication to me that anything other than student housing is going to come to the board and present. So we're really piecing together a park for students when the developers are saying, we're going to build a clubhouse with sandals-like amenities. So my personal preference is that, I mean, I think as long as they fulfill the green space requirement, I think that this is kind of a no-brainer. I mean, we're gonna build a 6-acre park for a bunch of college kids, but to what end?
Well, they're gonna have to satisfy their clients and bring the clients
Right.
in. They need facilities
Yeah.
and green space. We all know people like green space.
They're gonna be building places that people want to live in.
Yeah, that's
There's too much competition out there.
Sure.
I think.
Okay, now there's been a motion and a second, so we need to vote on whether or not we're gonna table this till next week and get it or not, so We'd watch other discussion next meeting. Yeah, for the next meeting.
I have real quick question.
Sure.
Are we gonna be the first, are we the first stop on these?
We're always the first stop. But if they change dramatically, then they have to come back through us again.
Well, I can say one thing, was 10 years I was on the board before, I don't remember a time where we had an alderman come and recommend a project not be approved. I mean, it's in my past. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, I agree.
We appreciate
Please
you
table it.
listening.
What are some of the
Good.
comments that you're receiving from your constituents?
I've got a lot of comments from my constituents. I've sent this out to a little over 200 people so far. Most people don't want to see it happen. It's not compatible. Capstone Development, Capstone Properties is a company, they've done a lot of investment in Texas, and they seem to leave the community after a number of years and sell it to an investment trust or a pension holding company. And then we see dilapidated properties in this community after numbers of years. So that's why I'd like to see y'all table it and actually scrutinize the parkland portion more, really hold this to a higher level. This is the first time we've seen anything like this, specifically in Fayetteville. And if it does ever happen, I want to see it done right. I personally won't be supporting it ever, but there may be some aldermen who do. So if it does get to that point, I'd like that extra level of scrutinization. And honestly, don't worry about the construction schedule. That's not your job at all. That's our job. So please don't even use that as a thing to consider.
Well, it's the developer's responsibility if they want it done on a certain day.
To file it by a certain day.
Right. Want to take a vote?
So this is a vote to table?
To table, yes.
At night?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Rand?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Caldwell?
Yes.
Lawson?
No.
Watson?
Yes. So, if we could get something a little bit more specific at our next meeting, that would be great.
Are you looking for plans, and what do you want to see?
Well,
Is it just areas?
area that is viable green space.
Okay.
That's really the main thing that we're looking at to make sure, because like I say, in this particular area, that green space isn't gonna be compatible with anything else in the area that we can butt up next to it. And, there's not a whole lot of parks in the vicinity, or enough park space in that vicinity to handle this load. And I'd like to see something that's a little bit more self-sustaining in there. And green space, to me, especially if there's gonna be ponds, retention ponds in that area, I don't know if that's gonna be a viable green space for the community and for that specific community.
Yeah, there's 800, this is showing 838 parking spots, and I think you said around 800 beds. And that sounds like it's gonna be a lot of cars.
That's
Well,
what planning
you put-
department, they'll take care of, they have a formula, so.
If you put that, I guess our concern, just to reiterate what Phil says, if you put that amount of concrete in one spot, you can fill up 3.2 acres, the whole thing can be retainage. And I would like to know if that's gonna be green space that these citizens can use, or
Or
it's all gonna be,
to the parks around.
truly a retention pond, and these folks are relying 100% then on those parks that are nearby.
So what you're saying is you look for 2.3 acres outside of the stormwater detention
No,
pond?
we just wanna know,
Green space.
we would like to
Viable
know,
green space, yeah.
if y'all have I guess you're not far enough along in engineering to know the size of a detention pond, retaining pond.
We can do that, we'll do that.
And as it looks right now, we could think, oh, there's 3.2 acres that these citizens are going to be using, and then it gets built, and the whole thing's a retainage pond. And these 800 folks are now going to Wilson, or going
And then the green space
somewhere else.
is some of those other areas.
When does this body meet again?
April 6th.
April.
Your due date would be
April 7th.
Yeah,
When is the next meeting of Parks and Rec?
April 7th.
April 7th.
And we need your stuff by, what is,
April 7th.
we'll get with you on
Okay.
that. Okay.
So what is the total, do we know the total acreage of this property?
Yeah, 27.27.
No, I mean, all the other,
Oh,
all the other student housing area that's not being proposed here.
Well, all we're doing is the 22 acres.
The rest of the Marinoni property?
The rest of Marinoni, how big is that spot?
I don't know,
Any idea?
100 acres?
Yeah, it's right before the,
Or 100 acres?
Yeah.
Is there a proposal in?
No, not yet. That'll be next week, next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have some thing coming up. Lake Sequoia Land Conservation.
Yeah, conversion, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right, I didn't misspell it. It's something that you're not used to seeing. So, oh, there you go, Aaron. We need it. Open it. Oh. Okay. Oh, you don't have the slide for this? Oh. Do we have handouts for them?
What?
Do you have handouts for these now?
Oh, this is what Allison sent, but it's not,
Okay, these are mine. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, bear with me a little bit then. Okay. When we take grant money from Arkansas, when we receive grant money or awarded grant money by Arkansas Parks and Tourism, when you do that, you have to put in an area within a boundary. And within that boundary, those projects are to be used for parks and recreation, outdoor purposes only, or support facilities that would support that, such as restrooms, concession stands, and sometimes it expands a little bit more to educational buildings and all. Years ago, when we had hobby use area, it's 40 acres, which is, or 47 acres, which is on the east side of 265 from Lake Fayetteville. The city decided to sell a portion of that for the United Way building and then for the Peace at Home. And so we decided that whole 40 acres, the city at that point in time was interested in selling that. That's what, we know that our lakes are water and sewer property, so it's in an enterprise. So they decided they wanted to replace that property. They did not want it to be in the boundary. So at that point in time, we replaced it with property that is at Lake Sequoia. And basically, it's by the Middle Fork, the second bridge to the east. It borders that piece of property. This is just a portion, but we replaced it with 500 acres at Lake Sequoia. Well, now they're wanting to widen the road, 16 east, and put in a bike lane, and also on the bridge, there'll be a bike lane. So we're needing to do a conversion because they needed to take some of our land that's in the right-of-way that happens to be 37 acres. So we had to find replacement property. At the time they took the right-of-way for Lake Fayetteville along 265, they had to take 0.79 acres. And we got 4.5 acres from the neighbor as a donation for the replacement, and we requested at that point in time that they take this, whatever right-of-way they were needing, because the bridge design wasn't done, from the replacement property. So that is what's happening again. I wanted this to be before you all because it's good that our public knows what's going on with it. So we're actually giving up ditch area and replacing it with the nice property. It has to be light property at Lake Fayetteville. And they have already approved this conversion, but wanted you all to to know what was going on with it. They normally do not approve a conversion or let you do anything with it until after the property is already purchased. And we wanted to develop the trail on it, so they allowed us to go on and purchase the property even before 265 and 16 were done. But this one is just now coming to the completion side of it. And the good thing is the highway department went backwards. This has like been a 2-year ordeal. They, at one time, they were not going to put any bike lanes on the bridges. And finally, they got it for the first one, pardon?
That's insane.
Yeah. And at one time, we had even looked at the middle fork to be a totally separate bridge. I mean, keep the old one, we're going to try to keep that one for bike traffic. But anyhow, the big plus about this, it will provide people to get to Lake Sequoia much easier and hopefully provide more outdoor recreation for them. So.
We'll need to make sure when they do that bridge that they have a viable access down to the property before we run into that subdivision on the east side of the Middle Fork of the White. To accommodate the trail that's gonna go.
Yeah, this is
Up
on,
and around.
yeah, you're talking on the first bridge?
No, I'm talking
You're
about
talking about this bridge here?
the east side of the Middle Fork Bridge.
Oh, the east side. Oh, wait, this
On
development
the north
here.
side,
Yeah, this development.
Yeah.
Right here. Yeah. Okay.
I can't imagine it being so steep, but they may elevate more of that into where there wouldn't be a good, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
About a little pump station?
Yeah, that's the access now.
Yeah, and that has to stay, that
Yeah,
access to the
that-
pump station.
It makes sense, okay.
But I'll pass this around.
Here,
I don't know if
yeah,
I explained
yeah.
that very well.
So where the highway department is buying,
The highway department actually purchased
so
these
they
two
purchased
pieces.
that land.
Yes, and we had to
They're gonna do
replace.
that through eminent domain if they have to,
Yes.
and then we're gonna use that money.
No, we don't, we do not receive that money. Water and sewer receives that money. That is their department's money.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
actually.
The city receives that in the
City
water and
receives
sewer
the money.
fund. Yes.
And
All
then
parts, but-
we're picking up land where again?
4.5 acres, that's what completed the soft surface and hard surface trail around Lake, well, the hard surface around Lake Fayetteville, so we didn't have to build so many bridges. And we actually got the land donated.
So that was donated, and then we kind of banked it, and they're just using it.
We banked it, yes.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to bank, they'll only give you so many years to bank it, but this, I don't know what the year's gonna be. I've already sent it off to Arkansas Parks and Tourism. After they approve it, it has to go to National Park Service to be approved. So we actually took this out of our boundary, and the highway department purchased it, and then we added 4.5 acres at Lake Fayetteville. It's a good deal, I think.
Is this something that you need a decision on? or is
It'd
it
be
more of a-
nice maybe if you all would make a vote. It's kind of like a done deal, but sometimes in our package, it'd be nice that I did present it to y'all. You all looked at it quite some time ago and approved it too. We showed it to you. And I can't remember where that went back to, April 2012 is not April, but 2012 is when it went back to, when you all approved both of them, or you all can just leave it as that, because it was kind of a done deal at that time. However, there might be some talk about it, and I wanted you all to be informed of exactly what was doing it. And when we do apply for funding for Arkansas Parks and Tourism, how important it is that that land that we take is outdoor recreation, and to remain as outdoor recreation. Because replacement land is hard to come up with.
So I make a motion to fully accept Lake Sequoia land conversion.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All right, take a roll call.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Watson. I'm gonna separate y'all names. Collar.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Priest.
Yes.
McKnight.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I know that was awkward.
Makes your life easier, we'll know.
The next thing that we got is announcements. And I tried to say this earlier, and it's kind of a tongue twister to go through all these, but I'll try. March 1st is youth spring soccer games begin. March 13th is adult spring softball registration ends. March 16th is early youth softball registration ends. March 17th is late youth softball registration begins. And March 31st is adult softball spring season begins. Okay. Those announcements. There's one little bit of new business that I'd like to bring up when we come to that section. I know it's not listed on here. But we had a walk today out by Lake Fayetteville, in particular the area that's between the Botanical Gardens and the lake. And we had a gentleman, Phil
Penny.
Yeah, Phil Penny, come up, and he works for, I don't know, could you guys explain a little bit better? You know him a whole lot better than I do.
No, I mean,
Go ahead.
I don't know his actual company name.
I don't, what is this company's name?
Basically, they do official surveys
Yeah.
of the land around lakes and creeks and things in it, and one of the things that he brought to light was that there should be for the wildlife, and I think that's really what this boils down to, is a wildlife corridor to allow wildlife to go from the north part of the lake to the south part of the lake. The proposal that's in this, if we want to hand these out, Melanie, we have maps.
You
No.
want me to hand you that?
You had a big stack of maps. haven't you?
Yeah, but am I supposed to hand it out?
You can have that.
I'll hang mine.
So how did I miss this walk?
Am I supposed to be on?
I do not know. It was something that was coming up, and Connie mentioned it, and
Yeah.
I voiced that I would like to be there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What it was, we were trying to get an outside group to kind of look at it within park staff and other people that have built trails and had environmental background. Who walked it was Byron, Allison, myself from the Parks office, and Matt Mihalovich, he's built trails, and Ken Easton, who previously helped build the Mississippi River Trail. He's had a lot of experience in building a tremendous amount of trail system. We had him and then Phil Penny, because he's a biologist, environmental biologist.
Yeah.
And
Very
so we
knowledgeable.
wanted kind of their expertise on it in order to bring it to Parks Board, because you all have walked it, I think, and have seen it several times at public meetings. So we were trying to gather in all the public, the user groups, recommendations, and then try to get something out of this. So that's kind of where we're at.
And one of the things that was, to me, that I kind of had a lot of questions about as far as this particular issue goes is, we talked about wetland area, and we'd have to do boardwalks in wetland area. And then there's the, outside of the wetland area, the animal buffer there. But nothing, we haven't gotten anything as far as exactly where that is and how much space that it does it, that it puts on there. And this is kind of, what I would recommend is, Phil recommended, or he didn't recommend, but he said that he could do something like that. Did we get into the issues as far as, do we have to put bids out on this? Did you find that out as far as that goes?
We'll take care of all the
Take care of all that.
procedures.
Okay.
I think,
But basically, it gives us some answers as far as how much space is really needed. I believe Phil mentioned 200 feet from the shoreline is how much space is needed for wildlife traffic to move easily. Some of the concerns that he said is that when you start bottlenecking it, you could have, a buck or wildlife walking on the trails, which is very common. We saw some samples of the wildlife left for us on the trails today. But you could conceivably during the day have wildlife going down a narrow area, pedestrians walking behind it, another pedestrian, and then now you've cornered a wildlife in a fenced area, which I believe is what Botanical Gardens is wanting to do, is create some kind of fence between their property and
barrier.
a barrier, But something that would restrict animal animals from going. So there's kind of an issue, and he recommended that a 200-foot buffer zone was a safe area for animals to move around if there was, for instance, an issue like that. My personal recommendation, after seeing all this, is that we need to go ahead and have that study done, and he would do GPS and line it and mark it, and show us the wetland areas, and also show us the animal buffer zones that he recommends. I believe that's the two big things that.
And water quality.
And water, oh yeah, and water quality is gonna be another issue, that he brought up. You know, several of the issues here, you know, we're a botanical garden, there's a drainage creek right next to them. He did mention, you know, what particular type of plants that they're planting as far as seeds getting into the water, going in, going down the creek, and then blooming or spreading these particular not native plants, which I don't believe they're doing nothing but native habitat down in the botanical garden. But I mean, do we even have? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, he just voiced a lot of
There's
concerns.
stuff out there that's not in my yard.
Yeah, I just feel like it would be a very, very informative and kind of give us a better idea as far as what are some of the barriers that we should be looking at here. He gave an estimate, well, I won't even talk about the estimate, I don't know if that's relevant or not, but I would recommend that we make a motion to have this study done so that we can get some better answers as far as, you know, what environmental impacts that this is going to have, and how much boardwalk space that we would have to do to go through in the wetland areas and things like that.
Is this being done in preparation of them presenting this master plan?
Is it being done in preparation? Well, it's something that,
We need to determine the boundary.
Right.
Where exactly we want the boundary. Do we want the soft surface trail to be the boundary, or do we want to add some land for wildlife area, refuge area? So I think, you know, that's been kind of the question. We've had numbers kind of all over the board of what people wanted, our different user groups. It goes anywhere from 150 feet up to, I think, 300 feet from the shoreline, but we also
I think the
support.
Forest Service recommends 50 feet. So really, you need to say 50 feet until
50 feet, okay.
until the 200 feet or whatever it is.
Yeah.
right, as far as.
So,
Go ahead.
Or are these two different?
This is the actual trail that's going off through there. This is a proposed trail or a recommendation the Botanical Garden had, or
Yes.
initial moving. Is that what they recommended? And it's basically, the big issue is going to be this area, but it's also, it goes all the way along here. There's an issue as far as right here. This is going to be a lookout. He mentioned that in this particular area, there's an endangered species type of bird that this lookout could potentially disrupt. And like I say, I mean, there was lots of things that he brought up and that I feel like are things that we need to be aware of.
And if we had this study done, we would use that information every time there's something to be talked about out there?
No, it's really just to set the borderline, for the lease that's coming up, that the discussion is as far as their boundaries and where our boundaries are and things like that. I mean, to me, it would help resolve this in a fashion that we can get this done and get it resolved and get some answers and make informed decisions.
So what are we going to do about our existing trail? Because if we have impact on the moving of the trail here, then it looks like, is that an existing trail, this yellow line back
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
So we have to have
Recommendations to
impact
move it.
in there too, so it's almost like we need to expand the scope of the impact study to include all of that 300-foot buffer zone all the way around Lake Fayetteville.
Yeah, well, I
So
mean,
if we're gonna hold them, I mean, I'm just saying out loud, if we're gonna hold the botanical gardens to that 200 buffer, I mean, we really need to do it around the whole thing.
well, one of the things that he mentioned is, you know, it's not so much the trail. He said, he mentioned a lot of studies that are actually, soft trails are beneficial to the wildlife in the community because they'll follow the trails right along with people, and there's minimal impact as far as that goes. He said that having trails through this buffer zone of wildlife is really, is okay. It's not a big deal for you to have trails through there. We did mention, you know, he looked at a lot of the drainage and how some of the trails sort of create these ravines, how water drains through there, and there's a lot of wash in there, and he recommended changing some of the trails in certain areas to help prevent that from happening.
Some of the existing trails?
Yeah, some of the existing trails, pulling it a little bit further away from the water and things like that. So, I believe he said he would do a recommendation as far as where our trails would need to be, where the wildlife line is, and then where the wetland line is.
He talked about, you know, if we are going to need to reroute this trail, you know, is it bigger impact to move the trail to another area, to the property or not? So there's some kind of a system that he goes on to determine, is it worth moving it by having another environmental impact on the property or not? So it does help us line up the trail, but it also helps us, you know, to determine kind of where the borderline should be. You know, we're not
For the
saying
lease
for the
to
lease
the botanical
agreement.
garden.
Yeah, because they need to move on with it. And, you know, it became very difficult. We know the value that BGSO brings. We heard that. We want to keep that development going, but we also want to protect our users, and we want to protect the wildlife that everybody loves to go out to see. So we're trying to keep everything in order and just do due diligence on this, because what the lease is for, the last lease was for actually 25-year period. So we're talking about a long time. And I think once we need to make a determination, so we don't keep moving things, so that they can go about their business and we can keep our citizens
As they expand
happy
further
to.
down in this direction,
Yeah.
as they're going. I mean, right now, this is their section that they're working on, but eventually they're gonna expand there, and I don't know their timeline. Of course, their timeline is, it's, you know, just a few years, it's gonna be up and going, but, you know, reality is that's probably not gonna happen. But, you know, to just set a boundary all the way down that, you know, we can kind of get past this and not keep revisiting it. And like I say, and then give us an opportunity to make an educated decision on it.
So it's really not so much about the trail, it's more about the boundary between Botanical Gardens lease and the park.
Right.
Yeah.
And our due diligence in protecting Lake Fayetteville for today and 100 years.
You know, when this was first done, and I think I'd say most board members never anticipated this type of development. I mean, you're talking about removing forests for some of this stuff. And it's just gotten further than more, you know, in the educational facility, it's never really, of the scope and size, it's never really thought of it this, heck of the past.
No.
Yeah, but if you look at the original master plan, it's much more in-depth than this.
Yes.
There's a lot more disturbance in that original master plan than what this is.
But, you know, back then, we didn't always look at things like we do today.
Oh, I know, I understand that.
And, you know, their plan changed tremendously, and so did Lake Fayetteville. Back then, people didn't go on that backside, but
I think it's
they
important to
did.
try to protect that backside now, because
And it is our secondary water supply. So the quality of the water is.
Is there not already a lot of this information incorporated into that?
Into our, at least the agreement that we have now.
Well, I mean,
The
Right
environmental,
now-
just about the environmental
we
study
made-
when they put in the trail the first time.
established this
Right.
as a potential source for drinking water, I'm talking about the lake as a whole.
Oh, okay.
Were there not any of these type of studies done during that process?
I don't believe so.
I mean,
Just
right
that-
now, it was a study and just, yeah.
All three lakes, just back in the 30s,
Yeah.
you know, all three lakes were purchased as a secondary backup. And I think our city needs to be very proud of us being conservative
Yeah.
and then allowing Parks and Recreation to utilize them for recreational purposes, so. And, you know, we just are wanting to do our due diligence in looking at the environment, looking at the lake, and also considering their great plan too, keep a botanical garden. It's not all, we want to work with the group.
Well, I think it's a great idea, because if there were some type of a scenario where we had to use this, and we have the water and sewer department, at that point, could potentially say that this park's not open anymore because y'all got trails right here, this is drinking water now, it's not just a lake. It would probably be wise for us to know where that's at and try to stay out of it as much as possible.
They don't-
And allow us to have a trail around that area, you know.
Right. Where we could still, in that scenario, still have
You know, they.
parks available.
They hope the spot for us to get our portable water would be at the dam site, because there's lots of parking lot around it, but it might be also the environmental study center, and it could come into this area. They haven't looked at it to see how deep it is, but we all might be standing there with a milk gallon jug to fill it someday.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think that
we want to keep the water quality good, and in the building of our trails also, make certain we'll build them correctly.
So, what you're trying to put together here is a motion to,
or at least a recommendation, to have this study done, I think is that, I mean, because we can't make a motion to make it be done, because it costs money, we'd have to get
But
that.
it has to, is there something formality about it being on the agenda before it becomes to a motion?
We've always allowed people under other business, and some reason we did forget to put other business. We didn't know that this was gonna come. I mean, this meeting just, we could table it and go to the next meeting.
I mean, I'm just asking a question, I wanna make sure that we follow procedure here as far as,
all we're doing is,
You know.
we're making a recommendation to staff to inquire into this. Is that what we're doing?
Inquire into the
And
study.
you'll
And
get
they'll
back
bring it
to us
back
with
to us.
a cost and a
Okay.
timeline and all that kind of stuff, and we would then approve that. Well, it's a project.
Well, there's certain things depending on, and you talked a little bit about this, certain bids, you know, certain amount of money or things that you guys can just absorb if it's not too much, you know, in the grand scheme of doing that. That's the way that I kind of understand it. So, I mean, and I'm not even sure if this is something that we need to make a recommendation about. It's just something that, that we kind of made a walk around the trail, and to me, this seems like the next logical route to go is to go ahead and have this thing done so that we can get a better idea as far as what's going on and what the boundaries are. I'm not exactly sure the best way to go about it, you know, if we're all voting to give you the thumbs up to go on, or how we need to do that. But I just felt like it was something that I was there, and we did do this walk around, and this is what was discussed at that meeting, and it seems like that's the next logical route to go. So, I'd like to make a motion to, give approval for, the Parks Department to, follow up on having this study done, or move forward on it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's take a roll call.
Lynn,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Paul,
Before I answer, will this include a study that involves the entire lake?
No,
No, it's just this section of.
it would be
of
this
trail.
area.
No.
Lawson,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
McBride.
I'm good. I mean, it's appropriate to two items and apologize.
Okay, I think, yeah.
Be like it.
So, yeah, so go ahead.
First of all, invite everybody to come out and play at Gully Park on Friday evening, March 21st. It's the Gully Park Cow Patty Run. I don't know how many years this is. 5:45 Friday evening, 1K run and also a 5K run. And 5K will actually go down the trail to Azalea Terrace and back into Circle Park. That is now currently being put on as a fundraiser for the Fayetteville Natural Heritage, for the Fayetteville Education Foundation. And in the past, I've done raise for a fundraiser for the park, build the gazebos and the bridges over the years. And with that, there's also an opportunity now and this, we've been talking about this for some time, to add on to Gully Park. The Lou and Alan Dunn family owns the land north and east of the park. As you're at the gazebo, if you just look to the left, as you're facing the gazebo up on the hill, it's the property that, it includes 2 houses on Owar Road. The property also goes down to Magnolia, it also goes down to the center of the creek, and has a sewer line that goes along I believe, the edge of the property, highly desirable to be developed. The Dunns always hoped it would be in addition to Gully Park. And Mrs. Gully felt the same way too, to take that whole area. They've been good long-term neighbors and friends for years. The Dunns need the family, or need the money for their family, which is understandable. And in the past, we've talked about trying to work out a right of first refusal for the city of Fayetteville. I know the timing on this is not good with the Mount Kessler situation, which is just tremendous, all the hard work that went into that. But the Dunns have had a couple deaths in the family, and they're ready to make a change and move. I've talked with realtors, I've talked with many potential donors, I've talked to, kicked a lot of ideas around with Nature Conservancy and waiting for a phone call back from them. Talked to a larger potential person today, the idea of maybe getting 4 or 5 people together to actually maybe purchase the property and then do an agreement to where the city would buy it back from them. We're looking at 11 acres. I think Gully Park is at 24 acres. Is Gully 24? So we're talking about, yeah.
Reference over here.
This is the part where the
28
pond.
Yeah. There's a pond on the property.
27.9.
Okay.
That's including the million terrace.
Oh, okay. Well, this area, this is 11 acres, and includes the 2 houses on Owar Road. It includes a shop building that does have a bathroom, and they actually had Rose Club meetings for Rose Grove in that shop building. It's heated and cooled.
Immaculate building.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I told Lou today, I said that shop building's the envy of every guy in town. They did a pretty good job of it. Anyway, there is a pond on the property. The pond, after some event in 1980, which we don't know if it was a seismic event or the drought, but it no longer holds water. The wishes of the Dunns and then the idea of put a soft path around it for walking, running, and then let there be wildflowers in the middle. Price-wise, I've talked with, in fact, David Mix will be the realtor on this. I've talked with David. There have already been developers walking the property. There have been people from, it is zoned agriculture. You keep a donkey on a piece of property, you can keep it zoned agriculture. That's why they've always got an animal or horse on the property.
The donkey didn't go with it either.
Yeah, you don't want those people or animals around a donkey. Anyway, we're thinking somewhere around 1.3 is probably 1.3, 1.5 on the value of the property. I've also spoken with her CPA. All these people are good friends I've known for a long time. I think everybody's in agreement that we'd love to have this as an addition. Is it expensive? Yes. It will, once the property's gone, I suspect you'd look at, unless one person can afford to buy it and put one house on it and have some horses around them, I mean, we all be able to afford that, but my guess is it would be sold to a developer because the family's looking at maximizing the value of the property, and I fully respect that. We've kicked around ideas about donating part of the property, about tax advantage one way or the other. They're gonna owe $150,000 to $200,000 in taxes. They want to move now, and I've talked with Ms. Gully, Ms. Dunn, about the potential maybe, they're looking at another place they're moving, and the idea of maybe making payments in installments. When we bought Gully Park, which was a bargain, and we bought all that for $100,000, paid her out over 10 years, paid her 10% interest, so she got $11,000 a year, and we gave Ms. Gully a life estate to live there as long as she wanted to. So this situation is different. Anyway, I'm looking for ideas. I mean, I'm thinking a bond issue. One thing that Connie and I talked about, you can correct me on this, I think there's a plan to spend $600,000 or so in Gully Park, maybe 2015 budget, which would be redoing the trail, redoing the lighting, and putting in a gazebo or a pavilion up near where the Gully house used to be, with bathrooms and improved parking. In my mind, wow, that's a good chunk toward purchasing. I mean, I'd be willing in a heartbeat to delay that money being spent if it could go toward acquiring another 11 acres. Once the land's gone, it's gone. It is obviously surrounded by, it's right in the middle of town. And the timing on this, I mean, if we hadn't said the Mount Kessler thing, it would have been a no-brainer. But the timing on this is not fortunate because of the Mount Kessler. But I'm working on this. I'm talking to people, many different people every day. The idea of a bond issue, it would be a small bond issue. Maybe you do a bond issue that would acquire these properties and put money in the bond issue to where you could do parking. I mean, I'm thinking you remove these two houses on Owar Road, that would be your parking up on top. Obviously, we would want a fence. I understand too, the house probably north of the Dunn's, it probably would be available soon too, nice big lot. But
1 acre.
okay, you've already looked at that.
And then to the east, there's 8 acres that could possibly.
Okay, so there's a lot of
It's
potential there. I'm open for ideas, suggestions. I feel like this is an opportunity we can't let get away, so how do we make it work? Mrs. Dunn's patient, she wants the big park. At the same time, she's at a point where she needs to move on. So anyway, that's what I've been working on, and this is the first time it's been brought to the public. I thought about writing a letter to the papers too, but I'm trying to keep together more information. What ideas do y'all have? Do you think I'm crazy, yay, nay, no way, or?
Well, every time I run, that's part of my little running loop, and as I'm going up the hill on that side,
Yeah.
I really look over there and think, man, that'd be a nice addition to the park, but I will say that I've gotten a lot of input from my community that I hang out with. We go to that park a lot, is that, there's not a place you can have dogs.
Right.
I think you would get a lot of support from the community if you had a dog park.
We've been there with that.
Part of that deal. 11 acres may be, too big to be a park, but also, though, I think we need to keep in mind that, these parks, it's great to have a big park, but then maybe there's not a 20-acre park over here where we just got been talking about,
Right.
the parks can't get too big and too spread out.
They can be they can't be too spread out. Not get smaller.
And that is a premium price.
Sure,
I
that's
think
what the land's
that-
worth.
So it's.
Well, you're gonna have a
We would
very
be
difficult
looking-
time
yeah.
finding a bank that's gonna support that type of investment.
Pardon me?
You'd have a hard time finding a local bank that would be willing to support that type of an investment.
What way, you mean for developing, I mean,
Yeah.
it's what I'm saying is,
Price for the land.
and the $1 million, $1.3 million, I don't know, I mean, until you get bids, once you've got a bid, there you go, there's current value right there, I mean, that's, whether it's crazy or not, and that's, it will be expensive. I mean, whoever buys it.
It's over $100,000
Not yet.
per acre.
Huh?
It's over $100,000 per acre.
Well, there's 2 houses and a shop building on it too, and that's the issue.
And
There's
it's
2
sewer
livable
main.
homes on it, and you've got, the sewer line's already there, which helps development.
It's a sewer main.
Yeah, the problem is there's 2 houses, I wish you didn't have 2 houses on it.
Oh, they're wanting, part of that price, just those two houses.
Yeah, it includes,
Yeah.
it's everything.
And the building.
They
Yeah.
want one and done,
Yeah.
is what they want.
If we're ever gonna
Something to look into.
add property to Gully Park, this is the place to do it. I think, I spoke to Mr. Dunn a year and a half ago, and, that was his desire, was to add that to Gully Park. He's the one that built the gazebo down there and did a lot of work there, and, I think it's, an ideal area to add, and a place where the Gully Park could expand. I have the same reservations about price,
Yeah.
that's a lot. So I don't know how all that would work, but, I think the property, the area there, is certainly a highly used park and, a great place for concerts and those kind of things. And, adding on to it, particularly parking area, is something that I've heard people talk about. Well, there's, pretty days, there's no place to park.
And the churches have been very generous in letting us park there. And one thing too, a comment was made about the, when O.R. Road is wide, that would, well, another thing too, then there are two churches right there across from the Dunn's house that possibly, if they'd be agreeable, that, you know, then that would be potential parking too. But then there'd be access to the park from, instead of having to walk down O.R. Road. No, it'd be easier deal to, if the two houses weren't involved, or maybe just take down the less desirable house as an entryway, but then again, those two hot spots would be nice spots for the parking.
So tell me again where it is.
It is, these two houses right there and that pond.
If we were to make a purchase like that money comes out of the development?
Well, when he's talking about that the 800,000, we don't know how much it is every year. That is the money that we do from our HMR tax. That's all the money. This year is all going towards like Fayetteville improvements for the ball fields, for the concession stand, restroom area. That's, and some stuff at veterans too, possibly, maybe we could squeeze it in. And we decided it's best for us to do one huge project at a time and go on and get one park set up in little projects. I think there's a lot of money to be saved in having one big contract. So 2015, the way our 5-year was set up is for Golden Park. So, anyhow, it's.
But, you know, we could go back and we could make an offer. Well, the office got the money in the fund to approve it, and that doesn't mean to go back, because they want this to be a park, they need fair value. It might be that if we went back and worked out a deal where, you know, it didn't involve both houses, or maybe involved, I mean, it's, that, you know, that way it costs less.
Well, the question I was trying to get to is like, these projects here where we take money in lieu of land, is that, well, this one's
We
not.
need it out, quadrants the problem.
Yeah, what is, do we know right in that right
There's
now?
nothing in
I know where you get around real fast.
the Northeast Park District,
Aaron, get back in here.
Northeast Park District, there hasn't been much.
No development.
No development.
No development, so no money in that quadrant.
Yeah.
So the only way we
If
would get
there's
the
any,
money
it's
is
very,
through
very
the
It's pretty much
HMR tax.
developed out, I mean,
We
except
have to wait for that HMR.
Well, hotel, motel, restaurant is what, you know, we split between operation and capital. It's like I think a 65,
We would almost-
30%.
Almost our only option almost would be to do a bond and.
Either a bond or.
Unless someone donated or raised money, or there was some fund.
All these dog people, they'll get their checkbooks out.
Or reserve, or we.
I've done the math, I mean, you know, there's gonna be 400, 500 people to go like park run, and $100 a piece, how far does that get us? It's a
Yeah,
long way.
It's a long ways off.
Yeah.
Well,
And they're gonna give $100 a piece.
It's a lot of, well.
You know, I think it's,
Frustrating
we
thing.
need to look at it. Can we do
A
it?
lot of folks selling
I
dog
think
food around
it's
here.
the question, you know.
So what's the motion? To look at
Help
it?
me, the motion is to help me. Give me ideas. I mean, I don't, even though I'm in the business, I don't know the idea of a bond issue. I mean, this would be a tiny bond issue, but you do a $2 million bond issue, and it buys the land, it makes improvements to the park, puts in parking lots, and interest, I mean, it's cheap now. I mean, now's a great time to borrow money.
But that's up to, you know, city council is a bond.
Well, if I was, that's me,
We would
that's,
just be making a recommendation to.
yeah, I mean, I tell my clients, use your credit card to
Well,
pay them off, and
yeah.
money's cheap right now.
If we're wanting to pursue it or not, can we find a creative way to be able to do it, I think is the question.
To reallocate future funds, basically?
I don't know about future, I mean, that's the problem. It, you know, they're what
And
they
the other
sell
thing is
now.
that I find, and this is what I'm working on now, I find an outside source to purchase the land, and they do an agreement, or to agree to sell it. This way, the Duns get their money, and then and who knows, those folks may be in a situation where they can maybe do a donation, sell, something that would help them.
Is there a possibility for a developer to bank the land? If they were purchase the land and then bank it
Oh.
against future developments?
That's a big development, yeah.
Well, but I mean, you talk about people that,
It'd have to
be
be
that big.
in that
quadrant,
in that quadrant.
why?
That's the way that,
That's just the law,
that's
right,
the
right, the
ordinance.
rules.
Can we
Yeah.
rewrite the ordinance?
No,
Sure.
we can't. It's been before the Arkansas Supreme Court, and that was one thing that
Yeah.
they needed to tie it to a quadrant. So, sorry, no.
We don't want to risk the green space.
Is it 8 acres adjacent to this 11 that you're talking about?
It's, yeah, it's on to the east. And
What
the
is
only
that?
say so that it might be available.
That,
So
I'm
it's raw land.
already doing
It's
that.
actually
We're
raw
already
land.
doing that.
At a pond,
What
Yeah.
kind of timeline are they looking at, they wanting to do?
They put I understand they put an offer on a place, and they put a down payment on a place, and they're, I think they're pretty much now waiting for, offers to come in on that place.
So they are actively listing.
Yeah, they're getting ready to, is my understanding, and they are more than willing to give us a right of first refusal, but, it's at current market value, which is gonna be determined by the bids. And I understand we are not that we want to get into this, we're not, the city of Fayetteville is not allowed to enter a competitive bid situation. So it's not like we can bid against somebody, we have to,
Match
be more
the highest
matter
bid.
them coming up with a price, and that be based on bid that they receive. That way, they know they're maximizing their value, which they need to, and understand that. And then,
Do we know what the value of the houses are?
no, I mean, that,
In that area?
She
No,
told me
those
they
two.
had been, that the land had been appraised.
I'll tell you, they're $91 a square foot.
One home is newer than the other.
yes, well,
One's, yeah.
I think the one that Ms. Lou lives in, Sonny built that, and that's by far probably the better home. The other, Sherry lives next door, her daughter lives next door.
Where are they staying here locally?
They live here in those houses.
Well, I mean, when they move.
Yeah, yes, yeah, actually, real nice, she named us, I know exactly where that is, it's out by Sequoia, it's a really nice place in the country. I spoke with Lou today about the possibility of, if we've got something workable and that would maybe buy us more time. I mean, but like anything, if we've got to do that, I feel like we almost need they need another place they want to go buy, and even if we want to try to keep it as simple as possible, and they do too. If you got a situation where we sort of, anyway, I'm just trying to keep it simple.
So, wait, aren't you asking them, are you all interested in
Yeah,
pursuing
obviously,
it, or trying to come up?
I want we want your support by all means, but too, like I said, the idea, who would we talk to about the idea of a bond issue? I know those things take some time, but if it's done, know it's coming.
City alderman, Alderman Paul Bevan, probably our
Yeah, it'd be
finance
them too.
director,
Yeah.
the mayor, and,
I mean, I know if it's the $3 million, I mean, I personally make phone calls in one afternoon to sell $3 million worth of bonds.
But you
The
all can
bond
make-
issue is easy.
what the ordinance says, you are to make recommendations to the mayor, city council, and parks director, actually, of parks department. That's what the scope of your responsibility.
So you're saying we can make a recommendation for city council to explore a bond issue to buy this piece of property?
Or alternative financing, or find a way around it. I guess it comes from, like you mentioned, that we request,
Gonna be looking.
The thing about,
staff, yeah.
reserves is, they just approved the 1.3 for Mount Kessler.
Yeah.
They approved 1.3 for employee raises, and then 0.5 for a bond, transportation bond reissuance or something on that, so.
And I've talked to Lionel about this, and Don about this, I mean, we know what's going on. why the timing's not good. That's where it's at.
It's available now, but probably never, ever again. Who knows? Who knows when property will sell? That's what it sells for.
I mean, if somebody were to buy 11 acres right there, we have a stream development there, a long time anyway, do we have reason to believe that somebody would try to develop that?
Depends on the amount, and then, like I said, it's gotta get.
Not
the
at that
planning.
price, I mean, anything can happen, but as far as for development concerned, they're a bit out of market.
There's been 2 developers that have looked at it, and there's a developer, I guess, coming up from another state to look at it. So, I mean, there are already people looking at it.
We're seeing infill right there on Old Wire, the new development right in there, between Root and Elementary. Oh,
Yeah.
Old Wire Cottages,
Yeah.
Oh,
not out of the question, I
we
don't think
can
at all.
land on that.
That's a pretty nice area of town.
Well, my guess is,
We added on to a park there.
you could probably, I could envision town, row houses, something like, San Francisco, on that whole edge of the park to where everybody's front porch is right there,
Sure.
looking,
You know, when we first started talking about Gully Park, trying to get a community park on the east side, there was a lot of people
Yeah.
were upset, you're crazy for taking Gully, and now look at it. Hey, it costs way too much money, but look at the benefits our citizens have received from it, so.
I live right there and it's packed all the time.
It is.
If it's not, it's.
we'll start charging attendance.
Can we do that? Can we start doing
But,
that?
I mean, sometimes I mentioned the way, if it was developed, we would get probably landed loose since it's right next to a park, so we're looking at probably, roughly 10%, so maybe an acre or something like that, I imagine would probably be, I don't know what the formula is, or I guess it depends on the houses and the development.
It depends on what it is.
Well, if they did the same development we just looked at, which was
Let's try to-
167 units on 27 acres, they would be possibly putting in
Let's see if
1.34 acres,
I'm
which
sure
is half of that size.
That
Local
neighborhood
acres.
will be local, we looked at putting a dog park using property
Dog
we
park-
have
these
now.
dog people give you money, you
And-
better go talk to them.
Yeah,
Get
but
kicked
they
to
didn't
the
want it
household.
on that property. We had to move this dog because it got so popular, that people were getting hit by them.
Yeah.
They did,
The
so
world's
we had
largest
to
dog
move
food
it.
store up the road.
Yeah.
You're right, I'd forgotten that.
Mhm.
So is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that you help me. That we explore, we ask staff or, to explore opportunities to acquire this acreage, these 11 acres from the Duns.
I'll second it. We'll take a roll.
Can we just say all in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah, just say all in favor.
Yes.
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 Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm hoping I did.
And,
Feel free to give me a call.
motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Well,